Today, I'll explain the American science fiction and thriller film Villain Healer, which was released in the year 2020. Let's get this party started. The film begins with Reverend Pfluger, an elderly and frail man, performing some kind of ritual at the Indian burial ground. A lightning bolt strikes him, knocking him to the ground, with a grin on his face. He then exits, indicating that the ritual was successful. The next day, our protagonist, Kelly, walks into a store and greets the manager, who also greets him because Kelly appears to be a regular customer. He pays for the noodles and, on his way out, he greets Dominique, who appears to be his partner on the way out. Kelly appears unable to stop himself from opening his noodle. He also consumes the paper. A group of guys get out of a car and start bothering him until Dominique arrives and tells them not to bother him. When one of them approaches, Dominique Kelly tells him not to touch her, and they respond by throwing him in a garbage can. The store manager then comes out and kicks them all out, assisting Kelly as she changes her shirt and heads to school. When our protagonist arrives at school, he finishes eating the paper for his noodles while taking his books and pencils from his locker. He notices that the video is being watched by everyone. They filmed him in the dumpster near the top of the mountain, where the old man was at the start. An Indian is now performing some sort of ritual at the grave. The elderly gentleman had dug it home. Kelly is ill as a result of his eating disorder. The doctor informs his mother that he requires the services of a psychiatrist. Later, we return to the old man, who introduces himself as Reverend Pfluger and claims that God has given him the gift of healing people. Then a woman approaches and, after depositing her donations in the jar, he begins praying to God to heal her. Almost immediately, she informs him that she is no longer in pain and begins walking without the assistance of her walker. Kelly's mother approaches the Reverend after the people have left and asks him to heal her son. He agrees, and she leaves to get her car so he can follow her home. The Indian, who was performing the ritual on the mountain, approaches the Reverend and introduces himself as Red Elk, offering his assistance and handing over the medicine that is said to have healing power. Red Elk explains to him that he must return that power because he and his father have been guarding it for 100 years. Kelly's mother and the Reverend later arrive at his home. Something happens when the Reverend touches him, and he begins to feel ill. So, he requests to use the restroom. As he walks away, he touches Kelly once more. But then something else happens, and it appears that the Reverend's healing power is absorbed by Kelly's body, causing the Reverend to die and Kelly to regain her normal appetite. When the cops arrive at the strange crime scene, they question Bernie S. Kelly's mother. She tells them that the Reverend dropped his cigarette on Kelly's body before he died. However, when he tries to show them the scar, it has faded. The sheriff is unconcerned because he believes it is just another group of people who were duped by the phony Reverend. Kelly injures his finger while working on his bike the next day, but his wound heals quickly. When he sees his mother for the first time, Kelly informs her that Reverend Pfluger has not only healed him, but has also made him invincible. They say their goodbyes, and Kelly rides away on his bicycle. Red Moose looks suspiciously at the protagonist at that point. Dominique and Sarah greet Kelly when she arrives at school. She tells him, worried, that she heard about the man who died at his house the day before, and he assures her that there is nothing to be concerned about. Dominique says goodbye by complimenting Kelly on how much better he looks since the last time they saw each other. When one of the boys who always teases him appears, Kelly provokes him to get the bully to beat him up. However, because of Kelly's power, he repeatedly injures himself. Later, there is a knock on Kelly's door, and his mother opens it to find the father of the boy who wanted to hit Kelly, who is confused about what happened. The protagonist's mother tells him that he could not have hit him and shuts the door. Kelly then tells her mother about her power and promises her that no one will ever hurt them again. The next day, while Kelly is in class, he starts having obscene thoughts about Dominique and Sarah, which causes Kelly to become aroused. What he doesn't realize is that the girls are experiencing the same thing he is later in the night as a result of his newfound power. The bullies begin chasing Kelly, who attempts to flee down the road on his bike, despite the fact that they are only trying to scare him. Brad has an epiphany and speeds up, causing Kelly to be hit. Brad's face is smashed after the crash because the power caused the same damage to him as it did to the protagonist. When the cops arrive, Brad's friends tell him that Kelly was daring him to run him over during lunch. Kelly and Dominique discuss how strange everything has become since the protagonist gained his power. Meanwhile, Nelson and his gang watch the scene and begin to mock them, feeling jealous that such a cute and popular girl is attracted to a virgin like Kelly. At that point, she invites him to the movies, which he accepts. Kelly is reprimanded at work and assigned to take out the trash while on his way to the dumpster. Kelly says yes when a strange man asks if he was involved in the accident that killed Brad. But the man makes him uncomfortable by pointing out that he has no injuries despite being hit by a car. Kelly informs him that he did not sustain any injuries because his blow was cushioned by a bush. As a result, the man confronts him directly, asking if he knew Reverend Pfluger. Kelly becomes nervous as the man stares at him, then tells him that the Reverend went to see him only to heal him, and then he died. When he finished speaking, the protagonist abruptly exited without saying goodbye. Kelly tells his mother everything that happened at school to Dominique, and she responds that he just needed to be more confident. He then gets up from his chair and informs Kelly that he is suffering from a severe headache that has not stopped all day. He has been unable to obtain aspirin. He offers to buy some and immediately goes to the store. Nelson's gang is waiting outside the house for Kelly's mother to leave for work. When they see her car move, they begin their plan, believing Kelly is inside the trailer. They speed away, tying the van to one of the bricks holding the trailer with a chain. As a result, the trailer becomes unstable and falls to the ground, breaking the gas pipe in the kitchen. Kelly's mother is trapped when the house catches fire almost immediately. When Kelly returns home, she discovers the tragic scene and attempts to save her mother, but she's already gone. Days later, following his mother's funeral, Redmond speaks to the sheriff, telling him that the boy possesses a power that should be returned to his community. The policeman, unimpressed, tells him that it is not the time for him to tell such stories. Later, he drives Kelly to social services, but the bullies bother him as they pass by in his truck. Kelly then realizes that the trailer was not an accident and jumps out of the car, furious, to look for them as one of them falls into the river. Kelly ties his shirt around his neck and begins to hang himself, simulating the pain. That same night, Kelly goes to find Dominique and tells her what happened with Tucker. She tells her that she should make them confess instead of exacting such vengeance on them. Kelly appears in chemistry class the next day, bothering Tony, who throws a substance in her face that, when mixed, is acidic and disfigures his own face, while Kelly's wound heals on the spot. When the sheriff shows up, Kelly flees once more. That night, Sarah informs Nelson that she witnessed Kelly eating some leaves that caused him to vomit, so she thinks they can get back at him with that. Sharif checks Nelson's truck the next day, while the boys are training, and discovers a piece of the block that was under the RV. So he questions Nelson and Reed, but just then, Kelly appears and eats a piece of Nelson's garment before piercing his leg with a drill that is replicated in Nelson's leg, who exacts revenge on the protagonist by hurling a plant-derived liquid that renders Kelly vulnerable. The trainer then takes Sharif's gun and shoots at the protagonist's head, replicating the bullets in his and his son's heads. Dominique is shocked and begins to confront Kelly, telling her that her power is out of control and that she must put an end to it all. He tries to justify himself by claiming that the coach's decision to shoot him was not his fault. Dominique, on the other hand, makes him reconsider by telling him that his mother would not have wanted her son to become a murderer. Kelly responds that it has always been his dream to be with her, and that everything he has done with his powers has been to make her fall in love with him. Dominique's eyes welled up with tears as she responded that she preferred the old Kelly because his powers had corrupted the tender boy he used to be. He tells her that he does not want to give up his powers and that he will begin controlling them right away. But the sheriff cuts him off and tells him that they can end all of this by going to perform the extraction ritual with Red Elk. Kelly, on the other hand, refuses to admit that he has self-control. The sheriff responds that this is impossible because the evil power that dwells within him has completely corrupted his heart. Seeing that his friend is unable to make a decision, Dominique informs him that he must choose between her and power. As a result, Kelly begins to despair and takes the gun on the ground to finish off the police officer. But he persists in going with Red Elk and manages to persuade the protagonist to change his mind. Sharif transports Kelly and Dominique to the Red Moose, where the ritual to remove Kelly's power begins. The police arrive just as they are about to complete the ritual. When Kelly and Dominique get up, the cop shoots him, replicating the effect on the cop on Dominique, who had kissed him seconds before, which is why the power affected her. She asks him not to give them power in her final words, and they both die in the ambulance. The paramedics speak calmly, but one of the corpses rises and reveals that Dominique is the new power holder. The conclusion. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Please subscribe and click the bell icon to receive new videos like this.